Why is it that when most people evaluate what they have to do in the day, the important tasks are listed and all set to go, whether mentally or physically on paper, already, but then when they actually go to do them, all of a sudden something random happens, like their phone's being pulled out? When was that a part of the equation? When and why has your phone now become the top priority? What caused it to be this way? Because it certainly was not on the list earlier. It wasn't one of those important tasks, top priority, no. But it's found its way there. Well, that's a lot of questions, all to be answered in due time. But I'd reckon there lies one that's much more important than the rest. What's a priority in the first place? What is a priority? Well, we can maybe ask, is it an action that takes higher precedence over another? I mean, when I prioritize eating over shitting, I'm just taking higher precedence, right? Is it maybe more important? Is it more beneficial? Does it bring you more value? I would say prioritization is the measure of importance of a given thing. For instance, all things being equal, between eating a cookie, munching down on a tasty snack, and your immediate death, one is much more important than the other. By virtue of the self-preserving nature of beings, you're going to focus a hell of a lot more on your immediate death. That's going to be way higher. Your priorities are essentially what you're valuing is more important than something else. And that, in and of itself, implies a hierarchical structure of things at the top. Think a pyramid, likely of most importance, and things at the bottom being the lowest importance. So you'll tend to bias the things that you find very important to you rather than the things you don't find as important. But that then begs the other question of why, when your priorities are set for the day, all good, fine and dandy, why was that idle shit you don't really care about somehow able to worm its way into what you're doing? Why, when you get started on your work, did your phone become a part of the equation? Now, I'd say it's not a long shot to say that it's because prioritization, the act of measuring things to do by means of importance, building that hierarchy of what you want to do first, what you value more, it's multifaceted. There are not just one variable in play. There are a couple variables at play here. Not just how quote-unquote important they are, but I'd say the main other one being the urgency in the action or behavior, or how time-sensitive it may be. I can use the example of fulfilling bodily functions, quote-unquote, to illustrate the point. Think of someone who's hungry. He's not starving, or going mad with hunger, but he's famished. He could use a meal. Now, you could say eating is pretty important. We need to do that to live and all. Big whoop. But he's in no rush. Now, imagine if this fucker had to piss really badly. Guy's been holding it in for a few hours and he's gotta go. You could say the act of urinating isn't as important as eating would be, because one is keeping you alive, the other is keeping your bladder intact, and getting rid of waste. But because of the time sensitivity and urgency of the matter, you feel a hell of a lot more compelled to, just get that done than, or at least I would, than to make a meal. It shoots, so because of this time sensitivity, it shoots itself way the fuck up on the priority hierarchy, that triangle I discussed, because of how urgent it makes itself. And by extension, the dude will likely go and do that first. He'll go take a piss before he makes himself a sandwich or whatever. And that should be warming you up to the ideas behind why you found yourself pulling your phone out when you don't need to be. But then you've got to ask, if urgency and importance are the factors, what's making that behavior either of these? What's making it so, what's making pulling my phone out before I start the work that I need to get done and that I've set mentally that I have to do, what is making this checking whatever the fuck's on my phone, what's making it so urgent that this needs to be done first? Or what's making it rank Highest in terms of importance, higher than the work you need to be doing, whether that be for your job or your school or whatever. What's putting it higher when it really isn't, or tends not to be, we'll say. Well, we've already identified the behavior isn't actually necessarily important. So what's making it urgent? Well, what's making it so urgent that the work you wanted to do, maybe the book you wanted to read, the podcast you wanted to listen to, the shit you wanted to learn, all takes a backseat in its favor? What has found itself so necessary to be done right this very second? Well, I'll tell you what it is. It's the fear of missing out. Now, you've probably heard this term before. It is very commonly discussed online. It's like a well-researched psychological phenomena. The gist of it is that of a sort of manipulation of your brain's tendency to not want to miss out on things. To then shape, which is used, rather, to then shape how urgently you value things. So for instance, most social media platforms, because those are always our big evils, will use this phenomena to keep you obsessively checking your Snapchat or your Instagram for something that doesn't really exist. A post you might miss out on. You might really benefit from it, but they don't exist. At most, people tend to get a mild laugh out of the posts they see, at the cost of what is essentially their reduced attention to every task performed within that time block. Because now this shit is always just going to keep popping up and inserting itself at the top of your priority list over and over ad infinitum. That's just de-optimizing your work. So now we've established sort of what's behind the curtain when we prioritize things within our heads or on paper. We've also come to understand what causes stupid shit like your phone usage to magically find its way into your list of priorities. So I'd reckon a final piece of the puzzle is rectifying that and solving this issue I outlined at the start of the video. And for that, I do believe I have a pretty solid solution. It's stop whatever it is that's causing the issue. Simple as that. And yes, that is making it sound much easier than it actually is, sure. But the only surefire way of knowing whether or not you're missing out on something is to actually see if you're missing out on something. Is it not? I'm of the belief that there is no better metric to determine whether or not continued usage of these apps is beneficial than to just stop using them for a while. It could be a day, a week, or even a month. But at least this will allow you to see just how much you supposedly benefited from using the apps, and how much was simply cope to help further the addiction most of us have. So you can decide for yourself whether or not the fear of missing out is worth actually having. After taking, a break for X amount of days, you will likely be privy to knowing just how important or crucial of a role in your life that these vices have, that these products, these apps have. For most people, once they get over the initial hurdle, the tallest one on the journey, of making it through just a few days without, the rest tends to come a hell of a lot easier. You'll likely end up filling the time anyway you would have spent on whatever vice it is. And those disruptions to workflows, so pulling your phone out, is going to be a hell of a lot less common when you no longer have much of a reason to. Of course, the habit's still going to be there, but that goes away in time. More often than not, the longer you go, the more you realize just how much better you can make things be. But aside from the rest of that lesson, it feels to me like a lot of people they haven't been making enough time for themselves to actually ponder and think about what they're prioritizing in their lives. What's taking the utmost focus? What needs my 100% undivided attention? And so you'll talk to them, and they wonder why their priorities are all out of whack when it's like, dude, no wonder they are, when you haven't given them the time of day that they deserve, rightfully so. What you prioritize is eventually what you end up spending your life doing. When you have your shit at the top of your pyramid, your hierarchy, that's going to get done. So you're going to be doing that. Those are the experiences you're going to be going through. And I said it here, the remaining coals of life are burned away on these things. That's what you're spending your time doing. It's no wonder this shit needs like specific attention and focus to guide where it goes and how it's structured, when it ends up forming who you are as a culmination of all that you do and have done. So I'd reckon we all shouldn't be treating it so lightly. Isn't that right?